Good evening, I hope you're all well. This video is a bit different to my other videos. It's still reselling related, but it's more about a little quirk of QuickBooks that only becomes apparent if you're self-employed and also receiving another salary through pay. For example, say you're full-time employed and you're doing maybe reselling on the side, so you have two income streams effectively. And the quirk is that even if you are past the threshold for when it will start calculating taxes based on expenses rather than just the blanket trading allowance, QuickBooks still shows it as zero, or it still shows you basically, if you didn't know, QuickBooks gives an estimation of how much tax it thinks you're going to have to pay. Now, if you're in the first year, this is not quite accurate, but let me show you. I've changed the settings on my account back to what it was basically the other day, which is when I figured it, which is when I thought, hang on, it doesn't sound right. I'm not going to show you the actual amounts in my account. I'm just going to show you this one little screen, just to show you what I mean. So if you set QuickBooks up how you'd expect to set it up, with telling it your other paid employment, or the amount that you get for the paid or the amount that you earn from your other paid employment, and any other information like your allowances and all that kind of stuff, you put all that into QuickBooks, it's supposed to work out how much tax you'll earn it's supposed to work out how much tax it thinks you'll have to pay based on that information, and based on the information you're giving it, like your expenses and your income, your turnover, all that kind of stuff. It's supposed to be able to work it out. Now, obviously, for most of last year I've been using this, my trading turnover has been less than £1,000. So with the personal allowance anyway, this would be zero. So that was right. But last, probably September, I think it was, August, something like that, I went over £1,000. At which point there should have been some tax, because then anything above £1,000 would then be taxable. As it is, I'm at the point now where, this is why it's an encouragement how this doesn't sound right. Alright, not much more than 1,000, but I've got more than £1,000. I've got more than 1,000 turnover coming through the account. And it was still showing up as zero. And yesterday I was kind of working through and thinking, this doesn't sound right, because what the allowance does, it basically treats £1,000 as an expense. So if you go over £1,000 in expenses, then you're supposed to treat the basically reverts back to using expenses. Do not quote me on this, I am not tax advisor or anything like that. I'm just showing you something in QuickBooks. Basically, you should be taxed on anything over £1,000, or if you're claiming on the allowance. If you're not claiming the allowance, which, say for example, your expenses are more than £1,000, then you'll be claiming expenses, and then the difference, you'll pay tax on the difference like normal. I think that's right. Again, don't quote me. Just showing something interesting in QuickBooks. So, by my reckoning, it's showing zero as estimated tax was wrong. That couldn't possibly be right. I was looking at it thinking, but I've gone over £1,000, I've got more than £1,000 turnover, and my expenses are now more than £1,000, therefore the difference should be what I pay tax on. But it was still showing zero. So, there's a little setting in QuickBooks, and I found it in the forum yesterday, and it kind of, when you change the setting, it kind of makes sense what it does, but you would think it would do it on its own. So if you go to the Taxes tab, and then click on Tax Profile, at this point I'm going to be very careful what I show you. I'm going to zoom right in. On the top right hand side of this Tax Profile screen, my screen is filthy. There. On the top right hand side is this box that asks for personal allowance. Now, most people's personal allowance is all based on your tax code. You can see it from your tax code, so it's fine. But QuickBooks won't start working out your tax allowance until this figure is reached, or that's what forms tend to suggest. So if you change this figure to zero, which in a way tells QuickBooks there's no personal allowance on this account and save it, let me show you what happens. And there it is. I've had a brief check and it's what I kind of expected it would be in terms of what I expected QuickBooks to come up with in the first place. So I'm not really sure why, because QuickBooks does have the information about how much you earn through pay. So with that information and the allowance information that it has built in, that we had on that tax profile as well, it should have been able to work that out itself. But it seems for some reason you have to set it to 0 if all your allowance is used up by a separate employer to make sure QuickBooks actually does it properly. What I will say in addition to this though is that although QuickBooks works it out on the year, what you need to be aware of is the way HMRC charges taxes, and that they actually charge what they think half your tax bill for the next year is going to be in the first year. And it also doesn't calculate student loans, I think, either. So I'm making sure I put aside double what that figure is showing. But that's neither here nor there. That wasn't what this video was about. And once again, I repeat, this is not advice in any way, shape or form. It's just me showing a little quirk on QuickBooks, which doesn't seem to be quite correct. And I said, I saw it in a forum yesterday when I was trying to work out why is my tax income 0? It doesn't make any sense. And that was why. Anyway, I hope this video was interesting. If you like this video and would like to see more, then please like, comment and subscribe, and maybe I will see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye!